Guys, when I tell you that I idolized marriage, I need you to believe me. Like, I usually hear people say, "Oh, I think about getting married often," and what. Guys, I idolized marriage. I thought about getting married every single day. The way it was so bad, I was even planning a wedding, but I was not engaged. Oh my goodness. If you are obsessed or desperate for marriage, then you need to watch this. Hey, I'm Natasha, and welcome to Bethcast, a space for real, raw, and unfiltered conversations. This is episode 4. And in today's episode, I am going to be diving very deep into a very, very private and personal moment, or rather part of my life. And yeah, I guess that's the entire purpose of this podcast. So let's get into it. Today, I will be sharing my personal story of how I had a very unhealthy obsession with marriage. And I will be unpacking all of that and how it transpired. So, I'm going to start off the conversation by just sharing a bit of my family history. So, my mom was not married, and from what I've gathered and what I do know about my family history, a lot of the women in my family were not married. I grew up in a Christian household. My mother was Christian. My mother is actually the reason why I got saved and I have a relationship with God till this day. She was a prayer warrior, watching my mother pray, speak to God, and just watching her relationship with God made me want that. So I grew up in a Christian household. We used to go to church every Sunday. And well, unfortunately, my mother passed away. But fortunately for me, I stayed with a family that were also Christian. So going to church every Sunday, praying, reading your Bible was a norm. With that Christian background came a lot of strictness in terms of I grew up under the entire morals and values of you need to study, finish studying, get your degree. After you're done with your degree, get a job, get your car, get your house, get married, and then you can think of having babies and all of that. So that pressure of expectation started at a very young age for me. And I realized later on that that expectation bred a lot of fear of shame. So you would be afraid to fall pregnant because you know it would bring shame to your family. You would be afraid to be found, with a boy or dating or have a boyfriend because it would kind of like bring shame to your family. Then fast forward, we lived in the society of social media. Social media was booming and everyone had a digital device. Then we had Instagram, we had Facebook, now have TikTok and all these social media platforms. And it wasn't now only the pressure from family, it was now also societal pressure. You go on social media and you see people's lives, and that's when also the comparison started. You would see posts like dated for 6 months and we got married after that, or dated for a month or 2 months and we got married. So seeing those type of things just added more pressure, on top of the pressure that we already had, or I already had rather, from my family. Then in 2022, I fell pregnant. So you can imagine, coming from a background of this Christian household and, the expectation, and then there's societal pressure where you see other Christians who are getting married first and then having kids. And then you, as a person, who's very loud about your faith, by the way, you rock up with a big belly and you announce to people and your family that you are expecting. It really does something to you. There is a sense of shame that comes with that, in as much as we may try to focus so much on the blessing that we have and to just not allow external voices to control or dictate our lives, but the shame, it does exist. It is there for a certain extent or for a certain period of time. And I think that's when the pressure for marriage elevated. I don't want to say began, elevated, because I'm going to tell you why I say elevated. I started putting pressure on my partner. So I would, during pregnancy, I would tell my partner that, why don't we get married? I'm pregnant now. What is my family gonna say? I'm embarrassed to actually share this with my family, and I'm not married. Especially being that most of my siblings and the people that I grew up with, my sisters, whether biological or not, they did things properly. So they dated, then they got married, and then they had kids. So here am I rocking up. I don't want to say I felt like the black sheep of the family, but there was a part of me that felt like I disappointed my family basically. So that's when I started putting pressure on my partner that, okay, not, I didn't start then, but that's when the pressure elevated. I was like, look, we need to get married. We need to get married. Even though at that time, a very small part of me knew that it's not yet time. Fast forward, we realized, or rather, my partner is very honest, by the way. So we realized that no, it's not time, and we don't want to do this because of pressure from people. We want to do this when we are ready. But I was so in my feels, and I just wanted this to happen. And that's when I started idolizing marriage. Guys, when I tell you that I idolized marriage, I need you to believe me. Like, I usually hear people say, "Oh, I think about getting married often," and what. Guys, I idolized marriage. I thought about getting married every single day. The way it was so bad, I was even planning a wedding, but I was not engaged. Oh my goodness. So I would hint to my partner every time I would see something marriage related, I would hint to my partner. It got so bad to a point whereby one day I even went as far as actually buying myself buying myself an engagement dress that I was supposedly going to wear at my engagement. And my partner actually doesn't know about this. But yeah, it was so bad. And it was at that point that I realized that this was no longer just me idolizing marriage, but I had become obsessed about marriage. And that's when I realized that I had gone too far, actually. So I remember this one time I was like, okay, maybe if I fast for this, I'll finally see breakthrough. So I started fasting, and after I was done with my fast, like it was just dead. And this was before I actually learned the true meaning of fasting and why it's so important to fast for the right reasons. And more than anything, what fasting truly means. Because I think a lot of people don't really understand what fasting really is and how it's supposed to be done and what is the reason behind fasting. A lot of people fast to get things, to receive things from God, but actually, I learned that fasting is about dependence on God. It's about deepening our dependence on God more than anything. You don't fast to ask for things from God. You fast because you want to get to know God more. You want to show God your dependence on Him. But that's a story for another day. So, yeah, I had reached that level of obsession where I was even fasting for marriage. I honestly could see how I was actually making my partner uncomfortable. I noticed through his actions and a few things that my partner had really become uncomfortable. about about the way that I was acting and with the way that I was handling this entire marriage thing. It I was so self-centered. Basically, it was all about me, what I wanted, how I wanted things to turn out, how I wanted things to be, how I wanted things to go. And I only realize now that not once during that time did I sit down and think about what he wanted, about how he viewed things, or about what his plan was for me, But it was just all about me. So there was also a lot of selfishness. And that's one thing I've realized about idolism is that there's a lot of self-centeredness around it. And yeah, so basically that was that at that point in time. So this affected our relationship a lot. And I remember we used to fight a lot because I would say, I want this. And, my partner would be like, but the reality is that it's not yet time. We are not yet ready. We don't have the finances. And I think the desperation was so bad that I would even justify not wanting a white marriage. To be honest, I'm not a person who likes things that are like over the top or over the moon. And if it were up to me, I would rather utilize that money of a white wedding and maybe save it for my kids' education or whatever. But I'm not saying that a white wedding wouldn't be nice, but the way I was so obsessed about marriage at that time, I was justifying even not wanting a white wedding. I would make excuses about how, civil marriages are the way to go. They are much more efficient. They are money savvy. They are not costly. You literally pay close to nothing for a civil marriage, etc. Which is all true, but I never considered what my partner wanted. I never considered the plan maybe he had for me. And I also, most importantly, never considered what God wanted for me. It was just about what I wanted. And the craziest part about all of this is that, to be honest, my family never put any pressure on me about marriage or getting married or getting married. And that's the honest truth. I don't remember one day where any of my family members came to me and sat me down and asked me, when are you getting married? Or, like in a pressurely way. It was never a thing of I'm being reprimanded and I'm having a meeting with my family because they want to know like what's happening or whatever. So it was always me who felt the need to explain myself, even to family and friends, of why I'm not married yet or why it hasn't happened yet. Um, and I now realize that no one needed an explanation and no one asked for an explanation. But I think it was that shame, you know, trying to justify it, trying to explain it, trying to validate it. So, fast forward, God reminded me of a time where I idolized my relationship in the past many years ago. And during that time, God had to separate my partner and I because he needed me to do some soul work and he needed to speak to me and he needed me to just be alone in a quiet season where he showed me that you are putting this man before me. And as long as you do that, that relationship or this relationship is going to be non existent. And that's when I actually learned about idolism and the fact that I was idolizing my partner during that time. And I vowed to God, I was like, God, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to put any man, any person, anything before you or love anything before you. Yeah. And then I was back to square one with the obsession about marriage. I learned a lot of lessons during the season of me learning about the fact that I had become obsessed about marriage. And one of the things I learned was that God will never give you an idol. This is something that I heard from Pastor Stephanie's one of her sermons. And I thought about it and I was like, yo, that is so powerful because God doesn't want us to have any idol besides Him. He wants to be our idol. So God would honestly never give you any idol. The flesh is so deceptive, and the desire of the flesh will always be contradictory to the will of the Spirit. Hey, Sana, this really stood out for me because I realized that I was allowing my flesh to want what it wants, but it was so contradictory to the will of the Spirit. because God wanted something different for me. He had different plans for me, but my flesh wanted what it wanted. So I also learned in this season, it's very important to just be very mindful of what you entertain with your flesh. I also learned that you can idolize anything. It's not only marriage that you can idolize. You can even idolize your kids, your job, your role, you know, your materialistic possessions, your home, your car. Like there's a lot of things, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, friendships, clothes, your business, education, celebrities. There's a lot of things that you can idolize. And sometimes we don't even realize that we are idolizing these things and these people until we are spending a lot of time invested in these things and these people more than we are spending time invested in God. We are loving these things more than we are loving God. Jonah chapter 2 verse 8 says, those who cling to worthless idols turn away from God's love for them. And I think this is because your love for that thing becomes more than your love for God. And remember, God is a jealous God. And I remember God asking me this question, and He said, if I took it away from you, would you still say, I am a good God? If I took it away from you, would you still say, God is good? And that's how you know when something is an idol in your life. So much that if God took it away, you would probably hate God. You would probably resent God. I remember listening to a sermon by Pastor Stephanie. If you watch my videos regularly, you would know that I love Pastor Stephanie and I will quote her a lot of times on this channel. So you need to get used to it if you are new here. But I remember on one of her sermons, she said something that was so profound. And she said, I lack nothing, even if it is all taken away. And it reminded me of the song, What a God. That part when it says, if the highest place I reach is at your feet, then I've done it all. If the best thing that I see is your glory, then I've seen it all. And for me, what stood out on those two lines is that even if we don't reach any high places, any other high places, even if we don't get that PhD, even if we don't get that marriage, even if we don't get that child, even if we don't travel all over the world, even if we don't start that business, whatever it is that you view as a highest place, even if you don't get there, but if the highest place that you reach is at the Lord's feet, then you've done it all. And if the best thing that you see in your life is His glory, then you've seen it all. So for me, that is literally one of my favorite songs. And it always reminds me that, yeah, it is nice to get all these things on earth and to achieve these things, but being approved by God and seeing His face and entering the kingdom of heaven, having eternal life is much more valuable than anything that I could ever acquire and any highest place I could ever reach on this earth. One thing that I learned is that getting married young does not mean the marriage will be a success. And also, getting married when you're older does not mean that you are too late. Not everything that glitters is gold. And that's just the honest truth. A marriage can fail despite the age at which you get married at or how long you've been married. I remember listening to a sermon by Pastor Torrey Roberts, and the sermon was titled Five Keys to Identifying Your Soulmate. I highly recommend that if you've never watched the sermon, that you do watch it. It is on YouTube. And he said something that was so profound. And this is what he said. He said, yes, marriages can fail due to people falling out of love or an unfaithful partner. But some marriages fail because God did not put you two together. You put yourselves together. This is what leads to divorce at times. And I remember immediately saying to God at that point, when I heard this, I said, God, I don't want to force a marriage with someone maybe that you haven't destined me to get married with, because that means I would be miserable and ultimately my marriage would lead to a divorce. One thing that I have realized is that this world has taught us that our happiness is dependent on what we have or achieve. So this idea creates like an illusion that when we're not chasing degrees, buying cars, getting title deeds, getting pregnant, engaged, getting married, climbing up corporate ladders and securing the bag, it means we're behind or we are lacking. Therefore, we get obsessed and eventually start idolizing these things. And we are just in a state of constant chase. And that's why we are so tired and mental health issues are like at an all-time high. I think it's important for us to teach ourselves to not focus on pursuing what the world celebrates, but rather focus on pursuing what God celebrates. So when I decided to do some soul work, right, so that I can actually understand where my obsession with marriage was coming from, I asked myself three questions. I asked myself, why am I so desperate for marriage? I asked myself, why is getting married so important to me? And I asked myself, why am I forcing it? Upon getting answers from the Holy Spirit, from, you know, therapy, listening to sermons, and just doing deep soul work, I realized three lessons, and or rather discovered three lessons. And the first lesson that I discovered was that I made marriage my identity. The second lesson was that my main focus was actually on the wedding and not the marriage. And the third lesson that I learned was that I was actually not ready for marriage. I realized that I wanted to feel chosen and I wanted to show the world that I had been chosen. So I wanted to announce that engagement. I wanted people to see the ring on my finger because that would ultimately mean I have been chosen, like someone has chosen me. I wanted validation because at that point of my life, I cared so much about my reputation and what people thought about me. I remember listening to another sermon by Pastor Stephanie, and she said, some things you're asking God for, He doesn't give to you because you don't see it right. You don't desire it for the right reasons. You desire it for your reputation, how people see you and acknowledge you. And I resonated a lot with this because it was then that I realized that I wanted the marriage for the wrong reasons. And it was all about validation, it was all about recognition, it was all about proving a point. And sometimes I would let people assume that I was already married because in that way I would save myself from the shame of actually having to correct them that no, look, I'm actually not married. So I remember asking God this one question. I was like, God, what is marriage really? Now that I've discovered that I was more focused on the wedding, I wanted the ring, I wanted the wedding, but I never really understood the purpose of marriage. I never really understood the intention of why God created marriage. So I started doing my research. I started reading my Bible more. I started being intentional with wanting answers from God and wanting clarification and direction. So I started off in the book of Genesis and I realized that marriage was the first covenant between God and man. And just realizing the importance of marriage, where, God created Adam and then he created Eve from Adam's ribs, right? And he then told them to be fruitful and multiply, and he gives them authority over the land and the animals so that they can govern them. And this for me meant that he was actually giving power to generations to come, and the importance and impact of marriage not only on the couple but on a generation and generations to come, and even on other nations that will be impacted by this specific marriage. So I think also the word covenant, that's when it made sense for me that it's not just about you and the person, and it's not just about being lovey-dovey and taking cute pics for Instagram or the dinner dates or the trips to Bali or wherever it is that you guys want to go. but it's actually very deeper than just pictures and the fuzzy and cute moments. So this is something that was revealed to me by the Holy Spirit during that time. And it was that there is married, the wedding, and marriage. Married is exactly that. You are just married. It is the title. The wedding is the day. It's just that one day where you're going to spend thousands and thousands of rands or dollars or euros, whatever currency you're using. It's literally just the day where you spend a lot of money to dance, drink, enjoy, and have memories and pictures of your wedding day. And the marriage is not the title, it's not the day, it is the covenant between you and God. It is the years before and after the wedding, how the person has treated you, how they deal with anger or pressure, their relationship with God, their relationship with money, their relationship with themselves, how healed they are, how they will raise your children, how they communicate, how they deal with change, how they view things and their perspective, etc. So I felt like that was really powerful. And just getting all this understanding started making me realize that marriage is a big deal, guys. Yay, marriage is a big deal. And yeah, I think that's why maybe the rate of divorce is very high. I don't want to judge people because I would never, influence someone to stay in a relationship or a marriage that is toxic or that is not good for them. But to be honest, a lot of marriages already have red flags, even in the relationship stage before they even get married. But I think we sometimes think that marriage will fix things, and we think that the red flags will become green flags. Whereas one thing I've learned through seeing married couples who were successful in their marriages, I've got family, friends who have been in marriages for 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, 25 years. I have people that I know who got divorced, whether I know them personally or not. But one thing I've realized is that marriage is not a fix to any problems you have in a relationship. You need to be whole, you need to be healed, you need to go for therapy separately and together. Marriage is soul work, guys. Yo, it's a lot of work. And I think maybe a lot of people might be out there and they view it the way I viewed it, where you just see this beautiful engagement and you just want to have this ring on your finger. You want to have someone you call your husband. You want to have someone to come home to at night. All those things are beautiful, guys. Don't get me wrong, but that is not the main purpose why God created marriage. The thing I learned is that marriage is not just about the two of you. You also get married to each other's families. And that requires you to be prepared spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. So after discovering and learning all of these things, I remember praying to God. I was like, God, it's okay if I have to wait. Prune me, mold me, shape me, transform me, refine me into the person I need to be so that I'm prepared for marriage. I would rather get married old, but have a healthy and happy marriage that will last a lifetime and set an example to my kids and to generations and nations than rushing into something because I just want to prove a point. I want validation. I want recognition, or I just want to post cute pictures. I'm now happy to actually share that I'm not ashamed of where I am. This is my journey, my truthful one, and I'm going to live it out loud and not hide or pretend to be someone I'm not or somewhere I'm not. I don't care if it takes me longer than others, if I fail, if I make mistakes, if I have to start over. Most importantly, I don't mind being seen, going through every phase and season because this is the real life I'm living and I only have one life. My desire for marriage does not change, and I love my partner and definitely see myself getting married to him one day. But my heart for it has changed. Now that I know the importance and true meaning and purpose for marriage, my focus is now on God and God only. And I now know that at the right time, He will make it happen. And I always remind myself this, that just because it didn't work out for other people, it doesn't mean that it won't work out for me. So I just want to encourage someone out there that remember that many other plans in a man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that will prevail. And trust in the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, and lean not on your own understanding, because your own understanding will fail you. We cannot comprehend the way God thinks or the way He understands things. So it's important for us to not lean on our own understanding, but in all our ways acknowledge Him, and then He will make our path straight. I love that verse so much, that in all our ways we need to acknowledge the Lord, and He will make our path straight. So as long as you are leaning on your own understanding, as long as you are trying to do things with your own power, with your own might and your own strength, you will find that your path will not be straight. So it's important for us to allow God to write our stories, and let us not compare ourselves to anyone out there. You know, our stories are different. I always say this to a lot of people, that imagine 56 billion people. I don't know how many people there are on earth right now. Imagine so many people doing the same thing at the same time. It's impossible. We cannot all get married at the same time. We cannot all have kids at the same time. We cannot all start a job at the same time. It's impossible. Then life wouldn't be the life it is. So always, always, always just trust in the Lord and don't compare yourself to other people. Yes, I know it's not easy when you go on social media and the one thing that is so dear to your heart, or the one thing you desire, is happening for everyone else but not for you. Always keep close to God. Let God's voice be the one that you're most sensitive to. And don't allow a lot of voices to speak to you or to infiltrate into your mind. The Lord's voice needs to be the one that overpowers any other voice in your life. I hope this video has helped someone. If you have a similar story, please do share in the comments. If you relate or you have been here before, and yeah, if you just want to share your 2 cents or whatever it is, words of knowledge, of wisdom, in the comment section, I would really appreciate it. And if you have watched this far or until this far, please leave me a pink heart in the comment section below, just to indicate to me that you have watched until this far. I really appreciate you guys being here, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.